Manually adding a user is straightforward. We'll start from the employee workspace and take a quick look at what that looks like. We'll first click New Employee. On this screen, we simply need to fill in the required fields. We will link them to a role, which is needed for them to be able to log in. When we've done that, we click Save. This user is now added to the system. This is a great option to individually add a user, but this process is not scalable if you have a large number of users. The next slide will provide an overview of importing users with a flat file. Importing users from a flat file, such as a CSV, XML, or an XLS, is a great option for many customers. Let's look at how to do that. To start, we'll access the data import connections under the integration tools. Within the Connection Manager, we will click Add New. Here, we name the connection and select the type. You can import a file through a file on a shared folder or a manual file upload. If you select File on Shared Folder, you're required to enter the server path and data file name. The advantage to this method is that you can schedule it. This method is useful if you have a list of users ready but don't want to import them until their start date. The other option is to manually upload a file, which instantly runs the import. We'll upload a file now. This is what the CSV looks like. You can see here that we have headers that match the required fields within the employee business object. Next, we specify the unique key of the CSV. This will likely be an email or user ID. We will select Email. Then we will specify the target business object, which will be Employee. This same process is used to upload other data to other business objects. So we need to choose where this data is going. On the next page, you can set a filter. But for these users we're uploading, that won't be necessary. We want all records. On this screen, you'll customize any field mapping from CSV column headers. It looks like, in this case, that everything is lined up the way we need it to. We can then click Next. To complete the import, we will click Publish and Run Now. On the Connection Manager, we can click into the Integration Log. The integration log will show us if the upload was successful. We can see that the top record shows that 3 users were added to the system with 0 failed. Going back to the employee workspace, we see that these users are in the system. This user import was successful. On the next slide, we'll look at some of the components of an LDAP import. We have an LDAP import configured and running. Let's look at some of the key components of this import. In the Schedule Entry Workflows, we will click LDAP Sync. This will open the workflow. In the workflow configuration, we see that this workflow references the LDAP Sync scheduled job. On the block within the workflow, we see which LDAP configuration it is linked to. In this case, it is Scott LDAP. Another area to check your LDAP configuration is within Scheduled Jobs. You can see when LDAP is scheduled to run. The workflow instances below show all the times that the scheduled job ran. We know that this scheduled job is functional. The last place to look for LDAP information is the LDAP import log. The last import was able to import 330 records successfully with no errors. In later courses, we'll show how to set up an LDAP import and do more advanced troubleshooting. To use Ivanti Service Manager, you need users. There are 3 ways that you can add users to the system. The first is manually adding them through the employee workspace. This can be a great option for some companies or situations, but if you have thousands of employees, this is too time-consuming. The second option is to import a list of users using a flat file, such as a CSV or Excel file. This is a good option for importing large lists at one time. The third option is using an LDAP data import connection. This allows for users to be imported automatically from Active Directory. Once this option is configured, the import of users happens in the background, and no further work is required on your part. We'll take a closer look now at each of these.
A business object is a container that stores unique information such as layouts, attributes, and relationships for workspaces within ISM. Business objects store business data and represent a business process in your organization or some other collection of data. Any key business component that can be tracked and managed should be a business object. ISM is typically implemented with a number of previously defined business objects, such as incident, problem, knowledge, and dozens of others. Though many in number, ISM's existing out-of-the-box business objects may not address all of a business's particular needs. Should this be the case, the option to create a business object that stores and displays data for a specialized business process offers up a useful solution. In this example, the CI workspace displays data from the CI business object. Business objects are made up of different views of data sets. In the Service Desk console, a business object's data is displayed within a workspace and is most often comprised of forms and lists. Shown here, the list at the top and the form at the bottom make up most of the CI workspace. Selecting a workspace in the header bar opens a new tab and displays the data of one or several business objects. The configuration view of business objects is available through an administrative role using the Configuration console. To access the Configuration console, click the Configuration Application icon, a wrench, in the header bar. Next, in the Settings menu under Build, click Business Objects. You can quickly access your commonly used business objects from the main page. Alternatively, you can use the Find function to locate specific business objects or click View All for a complete list. We'll search and select the CI business object using the Find option. Selecting a business object opens the main page of that business object, also known as the Details tab. The configuration view of a business object is like a hub that contains most things that interact with a business object, and each of those things is represented by a tab located in the header area. Each tab represents both configurable and non-configurable information for that business object. Most tabs provide access to information exclusive to the configuration view of business objects. These include details, fields, relationships, named relationships, forms, lists, layouts, business rules, search, ERD, and indexes. The other tabs available: workflows, saved searches, quick actions, templates, pick lists, roles, and audit provide views of information available in other areas of ISM, though some of them do provide unique and useful views of particular information. As such, we'll only focus on tabs exclusive to the configuration view of business objects, beginning with the Details tab. The Details tab is the main page of a business object and includes name, description, primary key identifier, and other basic information. The Fields tab contains information about the existing types of fields stored in a business object. A field is a container of information within a business object and can reflect information that is entered or selected by the user and is sometimes generated by the system. In this tab, you can view, edit, and create fields. The Relationships tab is where you view, edit, and create relationships between your selected business object and other business objects. Relationships are used when one business object must include information from one or several separate business objects. Similar to the Relationships tab, the Named Relationships tab shows certain relationships between your selected business object and other business objects. However, named relationships cannot be modified or created and should not be deleted. Named relationships are system-driven relationships used specifically in the Configuration Management Database, or CMDB. As such, it's recommended that you do not delete them. The Forms, Lists, and Layout tabs is where you can view, edit, and create, forms, lists, and layouts. We won't go into too much more depth than that in this module. For more information on these tabs, check out each of their respective courses. The Business Rules tab allows users to create, edit, set, and delete business rules. Business rules govern events based on user input forms and define triggering events, actions triggered by an event, and characteristics of user input forms pertaining to a business object. The Search tab displays the search settings for a business object. Search is defined how search results from a link field selector are displayed. In this tab, you can view and edit search settings for a business object. The ERD tab displays the ERD, or Entity Relationship Diagram. An entity relationship diagram is a visual representation of all relationships associated with a business object. In the example shown here, we can see all relationships associated with the CI business object. Lastly, the Indexes tab allows you to view, create, and edit indexes. A word of caution: creating, modifying, or deleting indexes is a delicate process that requires careful execution and thorough knowledge.